Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin has left Belgrade, saying he's very satisfied after talks with President Milosevic on Kosovo. He's reported to be confident about returning to the Serbian capital next week with the Finnish president and European envoy Martti Ahtisaari. Yesterday, hopes of a settlement of the conflict had faded after President Milosevic's indictment as a war criminal. Our World Affairs editor John Simpson is in Belgrade. His report has been seen but not changed by the Serb authorities.
The pressure on this country is now fiercer than ever. There were nearly 800 NATO attacks during the night, the highest of the campaign so far. Belgrade got off relatively lightly, but even so, 53 missiles hit the city. Here and elsewhere, the targets were often electricity supply installations. Once NATO attacked them with graphite, which put them out of action only temporarily. Now it's done with high explosive. The heightening of the attacks comes at a time when people here and elsewhere are trying to work out the impact of President Milosevic's indictment by the International War Crimes Tribunal. It didn't stop Viktor Chernomyrdin, the Russian negotiator, coming here, but it may have prevented President Martti Ahtisaari of Finland, the European negotiator, from coming with him. The received wisdom here is that when Mr. Chernomyrdin comes alone, it represents just another routine trip. He himself has threatened to give up unless the bombing stops and there's real progress. Since yesterday's indictment, he said, things have become more difficult. If anything can be decided, it'll only be next week. Even some of President Milosevic's political enemies here think the indictment was a mistake. The Democratic Party, attacked recently by pro-Milosevic demonstrators, criticized the War Crimes Tribunal for its timing.
We think that that decision will possibly break or damage or even destroy negotiations and peace talks. We think that the moment is completely wrong.
Now that Viktor Chernomyrdin has left, making, it's assumed, little more progress, if any, there's a certain nervousness in the air. Every night after he's been here, NATO's attacks have been noticeably heavier. John Simpson, BBC News, Belgrade.
The Kosovo Liberation Army appears to have launched a new offensive against Serb forces near the border with Albania. The Serbs, in turn, have been shelling villages inside Albania, which they regard as KLA strongholds. Jeremy Cook has been to the border and sent this report from Kukës.
The mountains which mark the border between Albania and Kosovo are becoming an increasingly dangerous place. From over the ridgeline, the unmistakable sounds of battle. The main crossing point for refugees heading into Albania is deserted. It's too dangerous to cross. Overhead, there are NATO aircraft. The nearby Serb artillery positions have been under heavy attack. We don't know exactly what's going on just across the border in Kosovo, but clearly there has been a major escalation in the fighting. It all adds to a general sense of tension in this area, and this border crossing point, which has seen so many refugees arrive in recent days, is at the moment completely shut. All the indications are that the KLA has launched a fresh offensive against the Serbs. The latest pictures from inside Kosovo show ethnic Albanian fighters moving freely. This Serb observation post has been overrun, but the men here still face determined Serb opposition, and their nervousness is obvious. While the KLA continues its campaign in Kosovo, the fighting has once again spread across the border. These refugees are not from Kosovo. They're Albanians from border villages which are being shelled by the Serbs, who regard their communities as KLA strongholds. They are refugees in their own country. Albanian civilians have been killed and wounded. This man was badly injured near the border. The American helicopter, part of the NATO force here, took him away for emergency treatment. To add to the tension, the Albanian forces have also taken casualties. 2 border policemen who stepped on landmines on their side of the frontier had to be carried 5 miles to reach medical help. The Albanian government has always said that it will respond with force to any attack on its territory. This morning, the Albanian army was underlining that threat with a live fire exercise within a few miles of the Serb positions across the border. It's designed to send a very clear message. Jeremy Cook, BBC News, on the Kosovo-Albania border.